All right. I get to actually start project from the start here. So we're going to be crocheting something out of here, as I had a request for. I will figure out a way to do this more gracefully later. A jellyfish for a friend of my child's. Now I am not going to show you the pattern itself because that's a bridge too far for me, but it is out of this book, which if you are interested in doing amigurumi, especially stuff that's shaped and not just a round blob, this is the first book I would recommend a person getting. Okay, I am going to set this up for my pattern out of sight of the camera. And we are going to get underway. So I will be using according to the instructions, I will be using a 4.25 millimeter crochet hook. And we are going to be starting with a 6 single crochet magic circle. I will not be narrating everything that I am doing, just because, again, I'm not giving out this pattern. I actually bought this, no, not bought, sorry. When I was first learning crochet, I had borrowed this one from the library. 6. Stitch marker. This one is in the round, so unless you want to painstakingly count every single stitch, which I am not going to do because I don't want to. Okay. Getting this into this first one is always fun. Subsequent ones are always much easier. I'm going to securing that. This is a pretty standard increase for doing something round. Just go back and forth a few times with the tail of the thread just to get it decently well woven in, because you don't want those to come out. I have not personally experienced a magic ring coming loose, and honestly the majority of stuff I have made has gone to my children, who are not exactly what you might call gentle with their playing with it. Anyway, the yarn I'm presently using is a Red Heart Super Saver acrylic yarn. This was one of the jumbo skeins in the colorway Macaw. The child for whom I am making this really likes blue, so this is a variegated blue yarn. I actually got it to make crochet monsters because I figured it would look nice for that purpose. Anyway, is there any other info that I should be giving out right now? I don't think so. You might be able to hear the fan in the background. It is where I live presently, we have a heat warning. It's about 30 degrees Celsius outside. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, sorry. You can Google it. It's probably in the 90s or something. I don't know. You may also hear my poor, starving Sheltie, who's always starving around when it gets close to his supper time, but he believes he's starving at all times. So, don't worry about him. one thing that I don't know if it's going to work on this one is the little embroidered thread mouth. I'm not sure. We'll see how it works up, but I'm not convinced how well the black would show up against the very dark blue that this colorway seems to be majority made up of. Some splitting with this yarn. An experiment one of these times and see if I can actually be listening to music or something while I'm doing this. I think there's unfortunately a fairly high probability that if I am, that as soon as I turn the camera on, it will auto pause it. Which, fair enough, if I'm going to either listen to an audiobook or just random YouTube videos or music. Most of those, unless I'm just going straight up for really old classical music, is all under copyright. And seeing as I am an author myself, and copyright is kind of important part of that field, it'd be more than a little hypocritical for me to violate it heedlessly. It's a little on the scratchy side, but these are, especially when you got small children playing with them a lot, they get beat up really good or they have to get washed. They do soften up pretty well. That said, if you are in the market for an acrylic yarn for doing stuff like this, I would recommend the Bernat Super Saver over the Red Heart, generally speaking, just because it's not as scratchy to work with. But with that said, Red Heart does have a distinct advantage, generally speaking, or at least from what I've been in the market for, in regards to colors and availability. They're close, but I do think Red Heart, when I did a cost breakdown a while ago for my own purposes, Red Heart did come out as being one of the most economical of the big brand ones, which are almost all universally better than niche ones, with the possible exception being something like the Loops and Threads at Michael's or something. Where am I at in my pattern? There. one useful thing, if you're thinking of taking up crocheting, is being able to not only read a pattern, be able to read your stitches that you've already done. Because then it's much easier to find where you are in a pattern. Nope, that's not good. You know, I don't recall the last time I used a Super Saver yarn it being quite this splitty. Huh. Oh well. But it is also possible that last time I was using a hook size that agreed a little more with it. I think previously I had been doing this with a 4.5 millimeter hook, and that was just because I was generally applying far too much tension, so I needed the larger hook to try to compensate for that, which is the easiest way to do that while you are learning tension, but it's also a good reason why you should at least check a swatch every now and then to see if you've gotten better at holding your tension even. Well, if we get a color pool of this lighter kind of a color, then the little embroidered smile might not work too bad. Of course, I am now remembering that that is a bit of black thread is the one thing I don't actually have. It's super easy to grasp here, though I might be able to steal some from that cross-stitch kit thread that I've got sitting up there. Yeah, it'll be a thing. The purple thing that is in the background is a crafting pillow. So it's a half moon kind of a shape. I think they also get sold as a gamer pillow. You basically can rest your forearms on it to not be leaning down quite so far. So when you see me holding it like that and looking at it, that's me checking the position of my single crochet increase. Like, I also know that this is a single crochet increase, so I need to go into the increase one to do the increase. Depending on the pattern, if you're doing a even expansion, if you don't want to have, because there is something of a, it's hidden a little bit by the variegation in this yarn, but there is something of a kind of a curl that you would see going outward, particularly if you had, this is a little bit of a not as defined stitches, and the variegation of the color also helps mask it. But if you had a very crisp, like a cotton or something type of yarn, or a tighter twist on the acrylic, you'd be able to see kind of a line going off like that as you continue to make it bigger. If you wanted to avoid that, you basically just don't increase on such a regular interval. You would vary it up, so you'd be increasing kind of between, somewhere midway between the previous round's increases, so that you wouldn't get that very obvious line of increases. I think going off of, because I have probably, I probably have like 100 in total books on knitting and crochet. Throw the embroidery and the cross stitch stuff in there, and I'm probably over that point. Alright. Probably, I'd say half of them have you do even increases, and the other half have you do them in the staggered style. It depends very much on the final look of the project that you're going for. A lot of times, particularly if you're making, like, say, dolls or something, the line where the increases are is most of the time put in the back of the head. So unless the doll is intended to be bald, they're usually then covered by the doll's hair. Though I will say, oh dear. Oh. Come on. That's interesting. Let's see if I can get that to stay up a little. There we go. This phone case has a shutter on the back of it to protect the camera lens. I should perhaps, I only have 2 phone cases because personally I don't think you need to change phone cases that much, but the other case I have doesn't have that shutter, and given what just happened there, I probably should consider switching it back to that one. I had switched to this one because we had gone on a camping trip for 10 some days a month or so ago, and I didn't want the lenses to potentially get damaged if I, say, dropped it on the ground or something. It's quite light blue. At least it does make a bit of a sound when it slides. So if it does it again, I should be able to correct it more quickly. I guess I could also turn the phone around such that the prevailing force of gravity would be holding it in the open position, not the closed. I really hope that's not my toddler getting out of bed. Though I'm afraid it is. We shall see. He might go back in himself. I haven't made one of these in a while. I wonder how long it's going to take me to do it. Go to bed, little Dan. You need to go to sleep. Just leave it on the table, Danny. Okay, good night, John. I wonder. Not sure if this is better or worse. I think it was better the first time.
outside his room, not the door, but past my room.
Okay, I'll come deal with him. You go to bed. Go to bed. There we go. Oops. Come on. There. Here's what I get for trying to sit down and do this immediately after the children go to bed. Big one was reporting on the movements of the little one, and the little one had drunk all the water in his cup and was looking for more water and then required to be tucked in and have more kisses. And then, as you may be able to hear, I also decided to feed my poor starving Sheltie, who eats 2 good-sized meals a day, plus treats. Any thoughts on the lighting situation would be appreciated. I do have a light sort of a thing that I could install. The thing is, I am working in close proximity here, so I also don't want to blind myself. But got a little bit of curiosity going. I've been listening to the audiobooks of the Dragon Riders of Bern from my library, and when I place or I get to my borrow of the book, nobody else has got a hold on it. But by the time it's time I either finish with the book or it's time for it to be returned or getting close to time to return, then there's a hold on it. Which makes me suspicious that there is somebody coming along behind me listening to the same series in order. And I kind of want to know who it is. But that would also be probably some kind of massive breach of privacy or something. But I kind of want to know, you know? I think I tried reading the books, the physical copy of the books from my library back when I was a kid. You need your nails cut again, Hero. Anyway, that's aside. So I think I tried reading them from my local library when I was a kid, but I strongly suspect, because I don't remember most of what I'm reading, that I must have grabbed something out of order. And, yeah, because like there are, within Dragon Riders of Pern, there are kind of nested trilogies. So there's a lot of Dragon Riders of Pern books. Some written just by Anne McCaffrey, some written jointly with Anne McCaffrey. I think there's a bunch that are written by a child of Anne McCaffrey. I want to say it's a son, but I don't call that closely. Honestly, unless I've read like 5 books by the same author, I don't generally remember authors' names, which is really bad, especially since I'm an author myself, but it's kind of like music. I could tell you generally the names of a lot of the songs I like to listen to, but unless I either really, really like a song or I listen to a lot of music by the same artist, there's a decent chance that I wouldn't be able to tell you who did it. But anyway, my point is that Actually, I don't know what my point is. The train of thought is gone. I'm enjoying Dragon Riders of Pern. I used to read quite a lot of fantasy fiction when I was younger, a little bit of sci-fi. Kind of got thrown a bit by the wayside with being a parent and all that. Ended up reading a lot more non-fiction kind of stuffs. Because being a parent, having lots of sources of advice is useful for different kind of strategies, but I don't think I've ever had an occasion where all of someone else's advice fits my kids. Even one kid. From one kid to another, they're very different, even when you've got the exact same parents and, in theory, at minimum, a very similar early nurturing environment, but the more options, the better, and the more you can have it acknowledged that you are not the crazy one. Sometimes children can be spectacularly irrational. Other times they're disturbingly rational. It's kind of a surprise, but they're fun. I quite enjoy having my kids. I think they enjoy having me as their mom. They're both supposed to be sleeping. At the time that I'm recording this video, the oldest one hasn't started. School year hasn't started for the older one yet, but it's getting close. And because I am absolutely not a morning person, and I need that my oldest child to be in the habit of making sure he eats breakfast before it's time to go to the bus, we've been practicing this week, actually getting up at the proper time, and I've got an alarm on my phone that says you need to be taking him to the bus right So we've been doing that. We just walk over to the bus stop. I'm not making us stand around and wait for it. Be a little bit interesting because I think that the heat wave we're currently under might be done by the time school does start next week. So then that'll make things a little bit more interesting as far as getting dressed. Because right now we're just throw your shoes on, you can just head straight out the door. But if it decides to be 5 degrees Celsius, here's Fluff. This is Hero. Silly pupper. He is, how old are you, Unit? Almost 12. Yeah, he's almost 12. Shh. He is both smart and spectacularly dumb at times. He's looking for... Oh, he's going to lay down there. Okay. Usually he lays down on top of the vent where the air conditioning comes out. Right beside the fan that is supposed to blow the air conditioning from that vent around the house. But anything to keep cool when you've got a giant fur coat. Practically speaking, though, I do need to give him a comb very soon. But he also hasn't had a bath in a while, so he's due for just a full-on grooming. But yeah, so the kids are getting tired. I'm pretty tired myself. I am not naturally a morning person, so I have to wake up around that time anyway, just because I do have a medication I have to take at that time. But if I did not have to, believe me, I wouldn't. So it's not just making sure that he's got the habit, it's also at least half for me. Because it wouldn't be complete and total burden if I had to take him to school. But still, I would rather not, if I don't have to. This is the last round of the single crochets, and then I can do the little frilly bit that goes around the edges. So this is assembled with a top bell where you put the eyes and the mouth on. There's a bottom, and then there are tentacles. Did I ever finish that story about the library? No, I didn't. I don't think I did. So back when I was first learning to crochet, I had rented out from my local library every crochet book they had. And this was one of them. So I made, at that time, I think probably 3, maybe 4 of the patterns out of here before the book had to go back. And then it would have been a couple of years after that I had borrowed it again and given it back at least one time by that point, but then it came up as an Amazon recommendation to me, and it was on sale. And this was the first book that I had gotten out as a library book that I determined that I would get sufficient use out of it that I wanted to actually have a copy of my own. And I have used it a lot since then. I think I have made at least half of the patterns out of this book, and there's a lot of patterns in this book, and I have made multiple of those patterns multiple times. This is, for example, I think the 4th or 5th time that I have made a jellyfish. I have at minimum 2 jellyfish in my house currently that belong to my 2 children, And I think that there's a jellyfish that went to one of my kids' cousins, and there's another one that went to a different friend. But this is usually like if I ask my older child if he wants me to make something for one of his friends, he usually goes for this book first. Yes. Okay. Now I actually have to pay attention. One kind of nice thing when you get into the rhythm on a mindless crochet thing, because then you can just kind of go. Yes, we'll see. If I'm feeling up for it, and depending on the time, I might immediately after finishing this one grab one of the ongoing mindless projects that I have, which is a Christmas ripple afghan, and start working on that a little bit. It's one thing afghans are really good for is if you want something that you can just work on without having to put in much mental effort in keeping track of, say, a pattern or something. I've actually currently got four. I currently have 4 relatively mindless patterns that I've got. One of them is more monotonous than the others because it involves knitting rib. And one thing I am learning about myself is that I'm not a big fan of knitting rib. I have to see how I feel about it as I go on. Nope, don't do that yet. But the other one, I have to pay slightly more attention because there is actually a color pattern. And then the other one, there's no reason why he's actually kind of just sitting off in the corner other than the fact that I wanted to get more work done on the things I'm currently doing. I am trying to get this one finished because of school supply drop-off means that I will be seeing the child for whom this is requested for very soon, and I don't want it to get confused in with the birthday gift that I have already made for this same child. So I want to not give them at exactly the same time. I should probably warn his mother that he's getting this. I was asked about it when she wasn't present. Not that she's ever actually had any objection to me giving him something before. It's usually more just managing the expectation of you can ask, but you do have to respect the answer of the crafter. Because different things require different timings. I mean, if I didn't get this frilly bit absolutely perfectly correct, it's probably not the end of the world. Honestly, with a lot of handmade stuff, it is very, in my opinion, it is very, very rare to have something come out pattern perfect. There's always something a little bit off somewhere. I found that, or I came to that realization and kind of acceptance of that reality doing cross stitch. I had a cross stitch once where the pattern chart, what was it? I believe it was the leftmost column was only 8 stitches wide. And my brain did not clock that. So it stitched out as though it was 10 stitches, which by the time I realized that I had done it incorrectly, I would have had to have undone, which is quite a substantial undertaking with a cross stitch of that size. This was a very large piece. I would have had to have undone like a week's worth of stitching, which would have itself taken probably multiple days. So instead I just improvised an additional 2 stitches on the edge of that entire row. And you couldn't tell. I mean, if I don't actually show you which piece it was, you'd never know. You would never know. I'm pretty sure that's true of almost every single thing that I've ever done. You wouldn't know. Like in some cases, there are cases in which it would be more obvious. I made there's a somewhat famous pattern for a sweater called the ranunculus. And I got this pattern and I did it up and I made multiple mistakes in it. None that were catastrophic enough for me to feel it necessary to take it out. The other impediment to that was that the yarn I was using, which I had bought because I liked it in the skein, I liked the color, and I liked the texture of it, but it was a monster of a thing to try to frog. Oh, it was so bad. I would have basically lost all the yarn that I had worked on, so there were not insubstantial drawbacks to the decision to frog and pull back if I had decided to do so. I know other knitters that would have done so on principle. I decided not to do that. I decided that it would just be ranunculus with errors and just continued on. I'm not sure how happy I am with the bottom of it. The cast on, I think I had held my tension too tight. I don't think I was supposed to have pulled on the yarn in the way that I did. So I actually still need to block it. It's sitting on top of my light box waiting to be blocked. And if it doesn't block the way I want it to, since I didn't actually weave in the end of that, and it's got a very long tail on it at the cast off edge, I might just take my cast off out, possibly, and redo it. But again, it will depend. If it's something I can live with, then I will live with it. If it is not, then I will not. They wanted to do a ribbed bottom and I already didn't want to do that, so I did something else anyway. So it's not like it's a perfect example of the pattern anyway. And that is generally true not generally true, it's something you can usually do with most patterns. Is as long as you know roughly what you're doing, you can change out cuffs, you can switch out sleeves, you can do all sorts of stuff along those lines, and nobody will know. And then especially if it will then accommodate better to you. Alright, I do not need this one don't need this tail for sewing in. That's done with the other one. So I'll give myself a long enough tail that I'm able to fasten it off and weave it in, but otherwise I will not worry about it. Okay, now, where shall I make? This is probably good enough. Okay. I don't think the little embroidered smile thing will work very well here. Alright, now I'm doing this for a somewhat older child, so I am not too terribly worried about the choking hazard that is posed by safety eyes. These are not the same size. I think I have both 8s and 10s in this bag. Are you the same size? I'm not convinced you're the same size. Yeah, maybe. No, they're the same size. Okay. Those other two definitely were not. accidentally spilled this bag of safety eyes and their washers into my yarn stash once. It was a terrible experience, and I do not particularly want to repeat that. The back. All right. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I've seen a style of safety eye installer that is like a wrench or something, or a pair of pliers, and I don't think that I would like that. There we go. Partially because of the angle which you'd have to use it, I think would be very restrictive depending on what it is that you're trying to do. I greatly prefer this one. And it does the job. And I don't have to buy it. There we go. Back over there with the supplies. Alright. There we go. And for this, what I mostly need to do is just get it into the center of the thing, because once it's in the center of the jellyfish, then what it will do will not matter so much. Then I just have to switch it back and forth a few times, so it's not going to go anywhere. This is one thing, semi-off topic, but it is relevant, that I don't like about chenille yarns. I've done a few with them, mostly for my own children, and they do not sew in well, generally speaking. And they tend to work themselves loose, which I've seen firsthand because I have children playing with them. So probably if they were just sitting up for display somewhere, it wouldn't matter. But if you have children that are actually going to play with them, then actually becomes, there it is, a detriment to using a chenille yarn. Alright, now we're going to do the belly of the jellyfish, which starts exactly the same way. I would hope that you can't hear this, but I can actually hear my my spouse snoring in the background. Oh dear. You probably can't hear that. I hope you can't hear that. It's pretty late. That is one thing I have noticed, like watching YouTubers and stuff, is a lot of the time when they ask about, I hope you aren't disturbed by whatever random thing there is going on in the background soundscape of wherever it is that they are. I don't know that I've ever really actually heard anything. Of course, they may also be using a higher quality microphone than just whatever it is that is installed and comes standard on their phone. So maybe that dampens the sound out a little, I don't know. I mean, if this gets where it has a lot more traction, then I may consider getting a more dedicated system, but right now this is just kind of a way to share crafting, maybe build community, maybe give you something to just stare at while you are trying not to have to think about what you had to do today. And there's also a little bit of freedom in the idea of I can just record and upload it. Nothing else required. So that said, I'm pretty sure I accidentally took a video off of my phone without actually posting it, which is something I am going to have to watch for. I also need to try streaming soon. I was successful, I think, in finding a program that will allow me to record the stream while I do it and then post it after the fact. Because I do like a little bit of efficiency. If I'm going to go through the work of doing the stream and everything, I do want to be able to post it. Of course, if it doesn't do much of anything, then yeah, we'll see. My poor tired butterfly. Stupid doggies. Oops. Addie's mein Floof. The butterfly's just looking for somewhere else to lay down. Don't know if you can see him in his alert ears up there. And I can't remember if I actually was recording in this landscape mode or if I was recording vertically last time. Well, we'll find out. If it tries to upload it sideways, then I might just scrap the video in that case. Then again, childs are in bed. They seem to be stably in bed, so either way, I'll see what it tries to do, and if it does try to do it sideways, then I'll know I need to orient the camera differently next time. I think it knows, though. I think it can kind of tell which orientation it's in for recording. suppose if people are falling asleep halfway through these videos, then my watch time retention is not going to be so great. Ah, well, whatever. Doesn't matter too much. Gone too far. Yes, I have. Not by much though, just one. Looks like I got a factory join coming up in this this yarn. I'll give him a roll before he goes into the thing. So smooth it a little. Random benefit of using this thing. You know, I generally prefer written paper books, particularly for patterns. I've kind of come around a bit on audiobooks, especially if I'm doing something at the time. Though again, that only counts for kind of mindless things. I couldn't imagine trying to follow a really intricate lace pattern or something if I was trying to also listen to an audiobook that I was interested in. But I mean, just doing a billion double crochets in a blanket that actually may want something to keep the active part of your mind more involved. Should get myself some frozen blueberries after this. That is my snack. Tried just about everything of frozen blueberries that the grocery stores around me have to offer, and I have come up across what I have determined to be the best one. Now, if you're going to be sewing using yarn tail to sew something in, a good rule of thumb is you want to have 3 times the distance plus some for your yarn needle. Oh. So, this puppy is now ready to be his piece. And I do not think I need the stitch marker anymore at this point. Alright. Tentacles. Now, crochet chains have a tendency to like to turn, and for this application, you want them to do it. You actually want them to be fairly corkscrew shaped. For doing this, but I really should just leave my scissors out here. just adjusting myself in my chair. More and more tentacles. So many, many tentacles. I wonder if it would be a little bit better to do these kinds of videos in like 20-minute segments. So I record the whole process, yes, but like every 20 minutes. Stop the recording and reset. That said, I have watched spectacularly long videos myself, so I don't know. I might have to try that out next time. See how it goes. So I have the big tentacles done. Yeah, go from feeling like I'm going to cough to feeling like I'm going to burp. It's such a good trade-off. Not. Oops. Yeah, it's certainly more stable now that I've got it clamped onto the piano instead of my chair, but it is still at risk of me bumping it over my shoulder. I'm not entirely sure what I need to do to correct that, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. I will figure it out at some point. At this rate, I think it's going to take me just a little shy of 2 hours to do this thing. I certainly hope YouTube doesn't have some weird upload length limitation, otherwise it's going to be a little bit disappointing. Though, I'd still be in the net positive because I'll have had the jellyfish done. And I'll just start doing it in 20-minute intervals unless I'm really, really close to finishing. Good old learning processes. Both of those are technically words. Or I'm just tired. That could happen too. But as Mrs. Corey says in Mary Poppins, where do you think words came from? Somebody had to make them up. No, don't worry, I'm not going to start singing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Much as I might be tempted. This is probably a good indication that I should be going to bed right after I finish doing this. Should figure out an upload schedule. Oh, I lost count. 6, 9, 12. Okay. I do like the colors in this. I think it's a pretty nice mix of blues. I'm more partial to purples myself, but I think the variegated purple that I've got, it's a red heart one, doesn't have the same luster. If anyone is curious, we have 5 dog beds in this room. The Sheltie is chosen to sleep on my feet, and the Papillon is making the rounds to all the different dog beds and sleeping in the mid-turn. I'm assuming he will eventually end up sleeping on the back of the couch that is next to me, because he thinks he's a cat. And he's agile enough to actually act like a cat. He's just not very good at straight climbing. one more thick tentacle and then I can do the thin ones. Then it is time for assembly. Ah, that should be enough. Just had a momentary thought of what if I don't actually have enough stuffing down here. If I do that, it'll be a short end to things, but I can still get most of it assembled. I have a big bag of stuffing in my closet, because I really don't need 25 pounds of stuffing to be sitting here in the corner, because there is not enough space for that. And once again, I've lost count. This is why I'm not supposed to be talking right now. Okay, skinny tentacles now. Alright. Time for the assembly page. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is actually weave in these ends of it. A bit too happy with putting my scissors there. At least I only have to do this on these ones. Come on, be nice. There we go. Time to change sleeping positions again already, Mr. Butterfly. I'm so tired. You know, you could eat your supper. It is in your bowl. I have seen it. Sheltie must have his meals given to him only at specific meal times. The papillon is technically free-fed. You just have to feed him on top of a table, otherwise the Sheltie will eat his food. We had a couple of instances when Hero was younger where he would routinely eat Mambo's food. Not that I think Mambo actually cared all that much, but you need sustenance, Mr. Butterfly. I don't think you ate your breakfast. He is much more of an attention of the people dog as opposed to a food dog. Especially now that he's gotten older and doesn't have very many teeth. There we go. That makes that a little easier. Okay, now I think I can put the scissors away. Little random bits, because they'll be eating stuff in there. There we go. Okay. Now. And since this is all going to be inside of the jellyfish, where the stuffing is, I can just tie a whole bunch of knots in it. One of these, by the way, is the string from the initial magic circle. Okay. Leave my next one. This is why I didn't have to trim any of these ones. If I wanted to be really clean, I could trim these in between doing the knots, but yeah, nope. I'm not actually doing a tutorial on this, you're just watching me. So I am not worried about making it look as neat and lovely as possible. I am following a placement guide that the designer has perfected. You know, I don't know that I've actually ever done one in the pattern is done in a two-toned thing, and I couldn't actually tell you if I've ever actually done it like that. I've done solid color, I've done kind of a mottled color, and I think I did a rainbow jellyfish at one point, but then there was not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to that one. I'm trying to remember if that one was a self-striping yarn or if that one was me actually having to get the colors out. I know I did an octopus with a self-striping yarn, which did not work properly because it was too small to actually get around the colors. And I've done an octopus where I did the colors straight up. So how many of those? That's 3. Okay. This one here, actually. And one more. Honestly, this part would be ever so slightly easier if you had you do 6 in this area instead of 5. Just go a little bit more evenly with hexagonal sections because of the 6 stitch repeat. But I mean, there's no reason I couldn't just do that by myself, I suppose. Nothing's stopping me. I mean, I've done other modifications to various patterns. But you have to learn the rules before you're allowed to, or before you know why and when to break them. You can break the rules at any time. But if you don't know why you're breaking it, or why it was there in the first place, then you're much less likely to do so in a way that actually will give you the result you want in your project. Unless you are the king of dumb luck. That is a possibility. Much further along with this fight. The kids' interruption. Ah, well. That is what they do sometimes. They don't usually do that. But of course they do when I'm recording. Alright. You're trying to kick off of my leg or something, Mr. Floof. Oops. Square knot. And something extra on top. Could be a jellyfish from that angle too. I'm getting silly. I need to go to bed soon. La 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 la. Of course, it didn't help that when I was going to take a nap this afternoon, that did not end up happening because I was trying to finish a summer-themed project with the older child, and his brain was just cooked, but we needed to get it done, and he also needs to kind of get in the habit of, you can't just apply yourself purely at your own convenience, because Lord knows humans can be spectacularly lazy when they want to be. Yeah, but I think people are generally pretty good. Okay, down to the last 2. Go into here. And you shall go there and in through there. Step that into that crochet project over there while I'm waiting to do this. Okay. Must you try to stand on my foot, little Fluffy? Now he's going to go lay on the air conditioning vent. I don't know. Yep, there he goes. Onto the vent beside the fan. Alright. know what I was doing. I completely stopped doing it in frame. Oh dear. To refill my stuffing bag onto my list of things to do tomorrow. Not that I'm actually... It's been a little unusual this year. I've been doing a lot more garment stuff, whereas usually I make way more stuffed animals. Then again, I made like 20 guinea pigs near the start of the year. So maybe that was my amigurumi fix for the year. But I've been doing a lot more garments. So I haven't actually been going through my stuffing as frequently, but I do still like to have it on hand. I always keep the bag here anyway, just because whether I'm working with yarn, fabric, or thread, all of that, generally speaking, when you get little scraps and bits, can all go into stuffing. I can hear the dogs. Poor tired puppy. Not that he actually did much today, but well, it's hot. And he is wearing a very abundant fur coat. I would offer to video that and show, but he doesn't actually like being combed very much. He will fuss and moan, and if he's got any knots or mats, try to bite the comb. Of course, his coat is so abundant that sometimes there doesn't actually have to be any nuts in it. It's just compacted, and that makes it quite hard to comb out. He does not like that. Alright, I think I can do the stuff now. This is probably going to take every bit of stuffing I've got in my bag. I have some bits of spare stuffing, bits of yarn and things. Mixed in with some actual new stuffing. Yeah, this is going to take basically all of what I've got. In you go, everybody. Fairly well stuffing. You've done your job. Now, considering that this is going to be getting thrown probably at the child in question's older sibling, I think that's about right. That's a little blurry. Okay, definitely need to refill that tomorrow. So I'm not going to do it tonight. Alright. This is very lightly stuffed, but I think that goes fairly well with the jellyfish. Generally, I would stuff quite a bit more than this, but I mean, it's supposed to be kind of fruity. Let's check our lineup. So this is supposed to have the same amount of stitches. section. So yeah, I think we're pretty close. That if I hadn't had that interruption, I'd have had this whole thing done in 2 hours. That's with me being actually fairly out of practice and doing running commentary at times, which is not very conducive to going fast. Not that I would consider myself a fast crocheter. I have seen other people crochet much faster than I have, so I'm under no delusions about that. And there. Okay. Okay. Now comes the really fun part. Is securing the thing in. So I'm going to get it in. And one of the biggest things to remember when you're trying to secure stuff is that you want to kind of, as much as you can, switch back and forth. So you're kind of going over where you've already been. That just secures your lines down a lot more. I'm going to do that a couple of times in a couple different directions. I've got a really long tail here that I may as well use up because I'm just going to stuff into the center to be one with the stuffing, because why not? He's lightly stuffed anyway. Poke him out all the way over there. You're going to go right back in there, and you're going to come all the way over to this side. This is not strictly a necessary step, by the way. This is just me doing what I do. I think I can do the stuff now. What is the stuff, you ask? We're going to use this thing. We're going to cross it over there, and we're going to stuff it in. Put it over there. We're going to stuff it in there. Stuff. In you go. Go in there. Go. It looks really violent. Oh dear. Anyway, here we go. Here is a jellyfish. Spook. Yeah, he looks good. Well, that's good. Yeah. I don't need your built-in button, YouTube. I have got my own. Well, it's not a button. Anyway, now I don't have to say it. Bye-bye.